got a private message on Twitter from Lewis, who watches the channel every now and then, regarding a piece, I believe it was in the Independent today, written by Frank Warren. It was an interesting piece because Frank Warren had written effectively an article being critical of Chris Eubank Sr. and the Eubank camp for not making the Billy Joe Saunders piece. But it appeared, at least to my eye, and also to Lewis's eye, that Chris Eubank Sr. had commented back quite an extended reply in the comments section with his, viewpoints on the situation. So I wanted to talk about that. Obviously, we've got both sides of the argument with both Team Warren and Saunders, and also Team Eubank involved in the same piece on the Independent's website. So perfect. Thanks very much, Lewis, for bringing it to my attention. And always good to discuss Billy Joe versus Chris Eubank Jr., one of my favourite rivalries in boxing. So effectively, Frank Warren's piece is predictable. It involves the criticism of Eubank Jr. that we've already discussed on this channel and that I've gone into in some extended detail. It effectively relates to Chris Eubank Senior and Junior wanting to hold on to the WBA interim title and not wishing to fight Billy Joe for his ranking, which is in the WBO body, because the WBO and WBA don't get on. Reference the recent Jamie McDonald-Kameda fight, and essentially Chris Eubank Jr. doesn't want to give up the WBA title, which he'd have to do in order to fight Billy Joe Saunders. So Frank Warren is very critical, blames it on his father's ego, his father's eccentricity, and says that the fight needs to be made. It's clear that the fight was very close to being made, but this WBA belt situation seems to be the problem. Now, Chris Eubank Jr. Senior, in his reply, it's actually interesting what he writes. And again, if you want to check it out, I think it's on the Independent website. But he doesn't dispute that it actually is the WBA interim belt that is causing the issue. He says that Eubank Jr. has been training for about 10 years to get his hands on a world title, albeit an interim version. And having fought for it, having fought an unbeaten, credible opponent in Dmitry Chudinov, they do not wish to vacate the belt at this stage. This is a version of the World Championship. This is their right to be number 2 in line to fight Gennady Golovkin, who's the number 1 in the division. And they want to make the fight happen without giving up the spot. Now, as I say, Lewis, thanks for bringing it to my attention. I know you're a big Chris Eubank Jr. fan. Here's where you might disagree with me. I completely think Senior is talking nonsense here. Let me tell you why. We all know the WBA interim title is a worthless championship. I mean, no matter how hard Eubank tries, he's not going to convince me that they're sitting there in Brighton so motivated to hold on to this belt. I mean, Eubank beating Chudinov is a credible win. It should be applauded. It should be celebrated. I was very complimentary about him on my channel. But the WBA interim is not worth the leather it's printed on. I mean, this is the 3rd championship within the division for that governing body alone. I mean, everyone knows Triple G is the middleweight WBA champion. Hardcore boxing fans know that Danny Jacobs is the regular champion. But the interim champion, I mean, that's a good level below the Jacobs belt. For me, this is a lesser title than a European title or a Commonwealth title. And for Eubank Jr. to jeopardise that is jeopardise a fight of this magnitude and finance for such a belt is very, very strange. What's also strange is he must remember that if he beat Billy Joe Saunders, he would of course take Billy Joe's spot as the WBO mandatory. perhaps that Saunders fight would even be for a WBO interim belt. So my point is, if he beat Saunders, he would get a mandatory challenge to fight for a world championship. But surely that is worth more than an interim belt. It would be a legitimate mandatory number one contender shot to fight Andy Lee. The Golovkin fight, Chris Eubank Senior saying like it makes him second in line to fight Golovkin. I mean, firstly, it doesn't really work like that anyway. It's not like Golovkin's next fight has to be against Danny Jacobs and then the fight after that has to be against Chris Eubank Jr. Golovkin's just fought Willie Monroe Jr. on a voluntary. I'm sorry if Eubank, Golovkin can't get anyone to fight him. I'm sorry if Eubank Jr. is that keen on the Golovkin matchup. He could get that on a voluntary. My point is, this WBA interim belt, it says it's a smokescreen, isn't it? I mean, if he's obsessed with interim belts, he can fight Billy Joe for the WBO interim. If he wants it because he views it as a world championship, then beat Billy Joe and fight Andy Lee for a legitimate world championship. If he wants it, to fight Triple G with, if he's decided that he's going to be the man to beat Triple G, then fair enough. But I don't think having the interim belt makes that fight more likely. I think, if Eubank Jr. decided to call out Triple G and go for that fight would happen. I mean, Willie Monroe Jr. is a much lesser name than Eubank Jr. Sorry, Willie Monroe Jr. is a lesser name than Eubank Jr. Yet he got the fight by calling Triple G out. So I imagine with Eubank's name and commercial draw, he could certainly get a Triple G fight if he decided that he wanted to go for. For me, it's a smokescreen. It really is. The Eubanks, they like a bit of fun and games, but they're bright guys. They're sensible, logical guys, and I don't believe for 1 second that Chris Eubank Senior, with his history and his pedigree in the game, is sitting there treasuring the WBA interim belt that his son's just won. I don't believe it. It's at the end of the day, he's saying Frank Warren's asking a lot for his son just to abandon that belt, but I think given the financial reward, given the potential gain of the rematch, the future matchup with Andy Lee, etc., that's a much more sensible business route to go down. I mean, if he doesn't fight Saunders, and if he's desperate to keep hold of the WBA interim belt, is he going to defend the WBA interim? Is that his plan? Is he planning to face 2 or 3 competitors no one's ever heard of in tiny money matchups to defend that WBA interim belt? It's just not realistic. For me, the real reasons he's doing this are probably twofold. First, it's to hype the fight. Let's remember, him not turning up to the press conferences first time round, in many ways it made it a bigger fight than even if he had turned up to the press conferences. Secondly, I don't think the Eubanks like the fact that Billy Joe is in the driving seat, or thinks he's in the driving seat. Billy Joe won the first fight. He thinks he can lay down the law. Perhaps the Eubanks want to remind him, look, you may have won the first fight, but we're still the biggest money matchup for you. Even though you were victorious, you need this fight as much as we do. Perhaps they're uncomfortable with Billy Joe trying to do a power play in negotiations, and perhaps they feel that this can reinforce their own position, both from an ego perspective and also from the opportunity to negotiate terms. I think that's the real reason. Delay the fight slightly, make Frank Warren want it more, make Billy Joe want it more, make the public want it more. Realistically, who else is Billy Joe going to fight? It's such a lucrative rematch that they're going to want to get this one over the line, and perhaps they'd be inclined to compensate Eubank an extra few quid to to force him to vacate his beloved WBA interim belt. I mean, the interim belt, it doesn't have any credibility. It's a worthless piece of leather and metal, and realistically, I don't for 1 second believe the Eubanks hold that much prestige in it. I think it's a play from them to strengthen their position and to increase demand, and hope that increase in demand from both their opponent and the public leads to a bigger fight, more money, more noise, more awareness from the public, and I think they'll probably do a good job of that in the end. I really do think they will. Perhaps they know they're going to make the fight, and they're training like animals, like putting in the hours in the gym. Perhaps they're fully aware of that, and they're hoping that Billy Joe is sitting in a McDonald's somewhere, comfort eating, and hoping that the fight is going to happen for his big payday. Maybe it's something sly like that. I don't know. The Eubanks obviously bring a lot of psychology and a lot of games when they get involved in a big fight. But I think this fight is too big for it not to happen. I do think it's in both parties' best interest for it to go ahead now. A lot of people have said the fight is too soon. I completely disagree. If these guys don't fight each other now, they're both at a level where they're risking defeats. Billy Joe, I'm his biggest fan. He could probably lose to Andy Lee. That's possible. Eubank Jr., there's frailties to his game. We know about that. If he starts fighting decent level opponents, there's always a risk he gets outboxed. These guys have to take the money whilst it's there. It's there now. It may not be there if one of them suffers a big loss. Let's hope the fight goes away. Let's hope the fight doesn't go away. Let's fight it. Hope it happens. And let's give the winner both WBO interim belt and the mandatory shot for the real WBO belt, which is currently held by Andy Lee. That's my thoughts. Thanks for watching. Keen to discuss as always.